Welcome everybody. I'm calling the nominating committee meeting to order at 3:04 p.m. I'd like to start with a territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the SFSS is located on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Katzie nations. Unceded means that these territories have never been handed over, sold, or given up by these nations, and we are currently situated on occupied territories. So it's important for us to know this, to think about this, and also to learn more about the different host nations of the spaces we are on, as well as the overall history of what has occurred in Canada and the way it's treated its Indigenous population. Start with roll call attendance. I'll start with myself. I'm VP Internal. My name is Corbett. Pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs are met. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabe Leosis. My pronouns are he, him, his, and my access needs are met. Thank you.
VP External.
Okay, is everyone able to hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. My name is Matthew. My pronouns are he, him, his. My accessibility needs. I'm just going to be keeping my camera off for the first little while until I figure that out. And then I'm going to hop onto my other desktop once that's good.
Thank you. Psychology counselor.
Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany Liu. I'm the psychology counselor. My pronouns are she, them, and my access needs are met, but I will need to head out about 15 minutes earlier. That's all right.
Okay. And our AAT counselor who's a volunteer is not here, I believe, Jeremy, but maybe he'll be in for a future meeting. Society staff, Aisha is not able to make it because she's in a PD day, and our board organizer is not here yet. Administrative assistant.
Hi everyone, I'm Joseph, pronounced he, him, and all my access needs are met.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to 4.1, consent agenda. Be resolved to adopt the consent agenda as by unanimous consent. The only items is 4.1.1, adoption of the agenda. Be resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. So for the consent agenda, do I have any, just being clear, Gabe, I don't necessarily need to do a mover or seconder for it. I just asked for a vote, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So do I have any objections to what's in the consent agenda? Seeing no objections, I move to a unanimous consent vote, or just goes by automatic.
If no one objects, then you can consider it approved by unanimous consent.
Thank you. I should have known this by paying attention more to our meetings, but it's different when you're on the actually running the meeting itself. Okay. Oops. So yes, the consent agenda is approved unanimously. Now we'll move on to 5.1 presentations. Move to presentations. 5.1 committee introduction and overview. So this was just because it's the first meeting of this committee. It's good to go over the purpose of the committee, what it's responsible for, any past activities from the previous year that might either impact us going forward or not. And so both myself and Matt can definitely talk to this item because we were both on the nominating committee last year. So I'll start off with going over the purposes of the committee and its responsibilities and such as laid out in policy. So you can look more at the council policies, specifically Standing Order 19, Nominating Committee, and it lays out everything from the composition to its terms of reference to its governance and so forth. So other important areas is the terms of reference, 19.2. Provide council with formal recommendations and reports relating to the appointment of at-large members to council committees in consultation with all council committee chairs and vice chairs. So that's kind of the core point of this committee, mostly focused on at-large membership seating. My role as VP Internal and Organizational Development, as the bylaws, is I'm also responsible for overseeing this kind of activity, which is also why I'm the chair of, by default, of nominating committee. So far, I've mostly just been doing this on my own, working with staff and others to coordinate when to do announcements and such. Okay, currently, we are in a campaign push to encourage students to apply for at-large positions for all our committees, almost that have those seats. And it closes on the 23rd. So is there any initial questions about this particular point? If you want, I can give me 1 second. I will actually just also link in the chat the actual council policies. You'll have to go to, sorry, go to page 116. It's near the end. I can also just share my screen too. So now everyone can see it too. But if you want to follow along on your own copy, that's totally fine. So the aspect of specifically one important thing is a consultation with all council committee chairs and vice chairs. Obviously, at the start of each fiscal year, not all committees have chairs yet or even necessarily get launched. So there is a bit of a lag to that. But as we go further, most likely throughout the year, there's going to be, people resigning from the committees or can no longer meet the scheduled times, but especially around when terms change and classes schedules change. So there's often going to be, every multiple times throughout the year that this committee will have to coordinate the next round of seeking students to run for and get appointed to these seats, which means then working with committee chairs and vice chairs around the questions to be asked in the application forms, what they need are, how many people they need for seats need to be filled, etc. So the question of how does that get done could be in the form of, well, either myself as internal, I can be the main direct contact, but we could also invite relevant committee chairs to these meetings as well if necessary, to talk more in detail about what they're looking for. Governance, we strive for consensus, which is generally, but where no consensus is reached, we go through with simple majority votes. We will take into consideration and respect Indigenous forms of governance and recognize how often other forms of governance overrule Indigenous ways of knowing, especially on occupied zone territories. And when the committee takes into account Indigenous forms of governance, the committee shall consider other aspects and ways of knowing in order to properly support the decision-making process. This can include inviting Indigenous elders of the territories and asking for advice or support in the decision-making process. Finding ways to include Indigenous forms of governance, i.e. talking circles, transparency process, and community engagement. I think there's also a lot more to learn about these types of Indigenous forms of governance in the sense of how they get the logistics side of things, how they're structured. And I'm looking forward to learning more about that as well. Is there I think that's it for the policy side. Yeah, it's not too complicated of a role. We are fairly what's called ad hoc in that we tend to meet as needed. So it's not going to be like we're meeting every 2 weeks throughout the whole year. So it can be, I think there'll be spikes of activity for this committee, but it will be, for the most part, different periods of time, pretty chill. Is there anyone else who would like to talk about this committee and maybe talk about last year? Like Matt, if you have the time, if you're able to, as you were chair last year, it would be very helpful to get your perspectives on this committee.
Yeah, so I think from I just want to say thank you, Corbett, for explaining all that. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think last year, especially with the transition online, that's when I noticed there was like, things that we could have worked on. And now that I'm realizing, throughout the whole year, um, there are definitely some things that we can implement that we've learned this year through working from an online environment that actually make it probably a little bit easier. I think this is the initial transition, like from where I was at trying to chair this committee, was figuring out, well, how are we going to get applications when online, and how to organize and also contact people, because everyone was still learning how to communicate so frequently through like email and messages and stuff like that. So I think moving forward, like with this committee, we have a pretty good understanding around how to, I guess, use like the job forms and communicate with chairs and like kind of have an idea and timeline how we want to do outreach to at-large members. So I think just some things that like I would want is just making sure like in the initial few weeks with at-large committee member applications, just meet a few times and go over. I think first thing is to even see what committees, because committees, like the thing about the nominating committee is that it is an active committee as long as our standing committees need the nominating committee. So I think it would be good to do outreach to which committees want to use the nominating committee for shortlist candidates, and then whatever committees aren't going to utilize nominating committee, then they can just go ahead and pick their own shortlist candidates and whatnot, because that'll save time on our end, because that's something I didn't know last year. And then I guess just moving forward, making sure that just we're communicating with the chairs and setting like up those meetings. So we just meet to deliberate and then submit our shortlist candidates, and then from there the committee just kind of picks who they want for their committees. But yeah, that's kind of all I needed to share, I guess.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? No. Okay. Well, we can always send an email if something comes to you later. If not, we can probably finish this discussion for 5.1 and move on to new business 6.1, appointment of a vice chair. Submitted by myself. I'll read out the motion. Whereas in the event that the chair is unable to attend and facilitate the meeting, it is important to have a dedicated secondary person to act as vice chair. Be resolved that the nominee technically I submit it so I can be a mover. Do I have a seconder?
Matt?
Thank you, Matt. Discussion. So as the whereas clauses, all committees generally need a vice chair, as both as backup for the chair, but also they can carry out additional duties as needed to support the chair's role. Do I have any nominations, self or otherwise? Go ahead, Matt.
I'd like to nominate myself for vice chair for this committee.
Okay. Any other nominations? It's my second call out. Third call out for nominations. I'll do as, oh, you don't have my camera, so you can't see me and my hands closing like you would with Gabe, but 3, 2, 1. Okay, nominations period is closed. Being that there is no competitive, sorry, not competitive, contested. The seat is not contested. Matt wins by acclamation. So I will, we'll still do the proper motion. I would like to amend the agenda. Sorry, amend the motion. My mistake. To read, whereas in the event of that the chair is unable to attend and facilitate the meeting, it is important to have a dedicated secondary person to act as the vice chair. Be it resolved that the nominating committee to appoint Matthew Provost, or VP External and Community Affairs, Matthew Provost, as vice chair. Do I have a second mover or a seconder?
Matt.
Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? No discussion, so we'll move to a vote. Seeking unanimous consent. Sorry, my brain for a second there. Yeah, I'm seeking unanimous consent. If you would like to abstain or oppose, sorry, I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of. Please use the raise hand feature, and I will ask you what your vote would like to be and have it noted. Seeing no opposition. Oh, Matt, you raised your hand.
Okay, wait. I'll just wait until you give us the cue.
So I don't see any opposition or abstention requests, so that carries unanimously. Well, congratulations, Matt. Oh no, now that's just for the amendment. Now we move to the main motion. Back to the main motion. I'll read again. Whereas the event that the chair is unable to attend and facilitate the meeting, it is important to have a dedicated secondary person to act as the vice chair. Be resolved that the nominating committee to appoint external and community affairs, Vice President of External and Community Affairs, Matthew Provost, as vice chair. Do I have a mover?
You don't need a mover.
I don't? Oh, yeah, it's already been moved. Thank you. Discussion on this motion? Seeing no discussion, go right to a vote. Seeking unanimous consent. All in favor, seeking unanimous consent. Please unmute your mic. Oh no, so please use the raise hand feature to, if you wish to register opposition or abstention. Okay, seeing no opposition or abstentions, this passes unanimously. So congratulations, Matt. Yeah, Joseph, we had no amendments to the actual agenda itself, just a motion itself. So it didn't need to go outside of the consent agenda, just a rare occurrence. Matt, if you opposed yourself, would there still be a majority? Yeah, because Gabe still counts as a vote, and so would I. So, okay, and move on to announcement 7.1. Next nominating committee meeting will be on Friday, June 25th, 2021 at 1 p.m. Okay. Moving on to adjournment. 8.1, motion be it resolved to adjourn the meeting at 3:22 p.m. Do I have a mover?
Gabe.
Thank you, Gabe. Do I have a seconder?
Tiffany.
Thank you, Tiffany. All in favor, seeking unanimous consent. If you would like to dissent or abstain, please use the raise hand motion in Zoom, and I will call on you. Seeing no dissent or abstentions, this carries unanimously. Thank you all. It was a nice short meeting, and I look forward to seeing you again on June 25th. By then, we will have ideally we'll have the I can't think of the word I'm trying to say. All the applications will close by June 23rd. It will have a set of people to shortlist as requested by various committee chairs. And I myself will, and with I think Matt's help, will reach out to all the different committee chairs to see who would like support in going through their, for shortlisting their different applications. Okay, so we might get lucky and nobody wants our help, but most likely I'm assuming some committees would like some support, especially the newer ones that are with people that don't have much experience for chairs. Okay, so have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Joe. Have a good week.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, have a good weekend.
You're still recording, bro.